What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Want to do a little video on our fabricated housing axle seals for 40 spline specifically. Any of you guys running 40 spline, doing fab housings, we have an axle seal that utilizes two seals per shaft, and they're an off-the-shelf axle seal that you can get at a local parts store if ever you need to change them. But the reason we designed it this way was so that you could run two seals per shaft and mitigate the need to pull your carrier and change a leaking axle shaft. So just briefly real quick, we run them on fabricated housings, whether it's rough stuff, spider tracks, any housing that has a 2.5 ID seal surface. So you got a lot of options out there, and this specific one that we're going to show you is a rough stuff housing that was intended for a rear axle originally, that we kind of cut up and made it a steer axle. So with that being said, the steer or the rear axles don't have provision for set screws for these seal housings. So I'll show you real quick what we did to make that happen. All right, so we're under here looking at the inside of our fab housing from Rough Stuff. And so we've got one of the seals installed, as you can see. And so typically on Rough Stuff's housings, right here in the tubing, there's a set screw for the axle seal. And because these ones were intended for a rear axle, they didn't have that. So I took this idea from Spider Track. Spider Tracks actually puts their set screw behind the flange of the third member, which I kind of like because it puts the set screw into the face of the oil seal housing. And here coming up with a little bit more detail on that process and how to make that work. But that's kind of an overview of how the seal housing fits into a Rough Stuff housing, and we'll get into a little bit more detail on assembly and how to set that up. All right, guys, wanted to go over kind of an assembly and install of our fabricated housing axle shaft seals for 40 spline specifically, that we run in Rough Stuff housings, Spider Tracks housings, pretty much any housing that has a 2.5 ID seal surface. So when you get your housings, you'll get two of them per axle. You'll get the axle seal housing, two seals per housing, and 3 O-rings per housing. So these are a National Timken part number that you can get pretty much at any part store if you ever need them. I highly doubt you will. We run 2 seals per shaft to mitigate any sealing issues. And then on the seals, we run a Viton inner O-ring, and there's 3 of them per seal housing. So when you get your housings, they'll be bare like this. And what I tell guys, and we're going to use this piece of tubing here as a mock-up axle shaft. And so the Rough Stuff housings have a set screw that is outside of the flange for the third member. So if you have that style, you will need to seal that little set screw just to prevent water from getting in there and rusting the shaft. That set screw, if you see this between 1 and 2, there's a larger gap between this O-rings, And so that set screw will land somewhere in that gap. And so on a spider tracks housing, the set screw is in behind the flange for the third member. And so the set screw will land in this flat spot here. So Rough Stuff sells two different style housings. One which is intended for a front axle application that comes with the set screws drilled in, and they also sell an axle housing that does not have set screws for a rear axle. So I personally have both of those. I got the axles at two different times, and so it's nice to have the set screw behind the flange, so you don't have to worry about it being in between the O-rings. And also it gives a nice landing point for it on this flat surface here. So if you, in either scenario, if you have Spider Tracks or Rough Stuff, this is the process in which I suggest to get your set screw set so that you don't side load this axle housing seal, because it's tight in there, but obviously if you put a set screw up against this surface here, it will start to side load, and we don't want that. So we'll say this is our axle. We're going to insert the oil seal housing until it bottoms out in the shaft. And what I do is I take a 1/8 inch drill bit and I come through the set screw housing and I give it a little mark. And what I'll do is I'll pull it back out. And so now we've got a nice little dimple where the set screw is going to go. And then I'll go back in with a 1/8 inch drill bit and I will drill this hole to an 1/8 inch. Keeping in mind that you only have about 3/16 material on this flat surface before you get into the oil seal. So it doesn't take that much, maybe an 1/8 inch down, and then I'll take a countersink bit that matches the set screw, and I will just open up that hole to match the taper of the set screw. It's not detrimental if you don't do that. You could take a larger drill bit just to try to clean up those edges and get the set screw a little bit more surface area to push on. But mainly what we're trying to do is create some type of pocket that the set screw can sit in so that you don't have to push on the oil seal housing and create that side loading of it. The O-rings will seal regardless of whether you have side load or not, but the actual seal surface on the oil seal could wear a little weird over time if you do that. So just to mitigate any issues, making sure that your oil seal housing is nice and true in there and your axle shaft is coming in nice and true. This is the way we suggest it. So that is the best way, regardless of whether you have a set screw behind the third member flange or whether it's in the housing. Just give yourself a little pilot and a pocket to for that set screw to sit in. So when you get your kit, you'll have, like I said, 2 housings, 6 seals, or 6 O-rings and 2 seals. And so what I do on these are a light press fit oil seal. I'll take a little bit of RTV and I will put it around the inner surface here. I'll press the first bearing in, and then I will put a little bit more RTV on the second surface, and then I'll press the second seal in. And so this is kind of what it looks like pressed in. You can see the 2, and these are double lipped oil seals. So, and then the back side. This ID is 2 inch. Your shafts and your seal surface should be 1 3/4. That's what these seals are designed for. 40 spline, 1 3/4 seal surface. So you got your 2 seals in there, and then your Viton O-rings. Just slap all 3 of them on there, rolling them into the groove like so. And that is the assembly. And so now you will grease all 3 of these O-rings pretty heavily, and then add some grease to the inside of the axle seal, where the seal surface is in the housing. And then this flat part will go up against the back of the face of the housing, and you'll just work this in. It will be tight, and that's what the grease is for, so you don't cut O-rings or anything. And I want to mention, please double check the seal surface in the housing itself, because I've had a few that had burrs on them, and that is the last thing you want when you're trying to push an O-ring into a tight space. You will cut it. So we will include an extra O-ring in each kit. That way, if something does happen, at least you have an extra one to fix it. So I think that's it. These are obviously intended for fabricated housings with an ID seal surface of 2.5 where these O-rings land. So just take it nice and slow, and you will have 0 issues and lifelong outcome and performance from these. And if you ever do have to change these, you can get them at a local parts store. I want to add one more thing, that what I do is, I don't know if you can see this on the camera, but this lip surface is actually tapered in one direction. So what I try to do is, the shaft is coming in from this side and pushing into the taper. So you want that taper to go towards the outside. So you can kind of see, like, the seal is kind of rolled here from the factory, and then on this side is where they actually complete that roll. So you want the I call it the factory edge here. You want that pressing down into the seal surface. That way when you push the shaft in, you push that lip down and not, because let's see here, you push that lip down into the seal surface. If not, you're going to be pushing it up as you go in. So if you got any questions, feel free to reach out, but these should get you set up with your fab housings and your 40 spline. And we do sell 40 spline shafts. We have our own line of 40 spline 1550 joints and stub shafts with a billet U-joint. So if you're in the market for upgrading to 40 spline, hit us up. We can set you up with carriers as well and gears. ARB makes a 40 spline selectable, and obviously the spool in 40 spline as well. But we're going to end that here. Comments, concerns, questions, feel free to reach out, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.